I don't really know how to feel right now. Phil Kessel has been playing hockey consecutively for almost twice as long as we have existed. 2009 is a long time ago. I was 8 the last time he missed a game. Wow. And on the historic night where Phil Kessel sets the new NHL Ironman record, Vegas Golden Knights win over the San Jose Sharks by a final score of 4-2. Now, the Golden Knights came into this contest just 24 hours off the heels of a very dominant win over the Toronto Maple Leafs in the friendly confines of T-Mobile Arena. And Bruce Cassidy apparently liked what he saw because he stuck with the exact same line combination, the only difference being Adin Hill is in for Logan Thompson facing off against former Leaf James Reimer. And so we had to expect that Bruce Cassidy, knowing the moment, was going to make sure that Phil Kessel was the very first person on the ice, and that is exactly what happened. The puck dropped to open this game, and with that, Phil Kessel became the player with the most consecutive games played in NHL history at 990. Just 10 away from the 1,000 mark, and if all goes to plan, it would not surprise me if he reaches that with little effort, as he's been an effective player throughout his entire career since this streak started back in 2009, and he's continued to be effective even with the Golden Knights this season. The start of this game for the Golden Knights, and really for the San Jose Sharks as well, was just really scrappy. There was a lot of sloppy passes and not a lot of, hockey per se on both sides of the ice. The Knights weren't looking great. The Sharks weren't looking great. The first really good chance for the Golden Knights came quite a good ways into the period on an Alec Martinez good shot on a turnover following a really bad Sharks defensive play in their own end. And ultimately, Reimer was just there. Neither team was really able to get any sustained zone pressure. There was a lot of shots from the outside, a lot of one-and-done opportunities, and the offense wasn't really there. It was more offensive than offensive. But ultimately, Reimer was the busier of the two goalies, and ultimately the Golden Knights were able to mount a push as, despite getting snubbed in the last game 24 hours prior, Phil Kessel opens up the game scoring, and this time it's actually going to count, as he decided to say, you know what, I'm going to single-handedly make this goal happen. He took the puck from the defensive blue line, skated through the neutral zone, outworked the Sharks defender who was draped all over him, brought it from his backhand to his forehand, and chipped it over the blocker of James Reimer and into the net for his first goal as a Golden Knight in his 990th consecutive game for his 400th career goal. That's a lot of asterisks to put on that goal. And that's just proof of how historic this goal was. If you can throw that much onto one singular event early on in the first period of a game, that means it was a momentous occasion. I saw on Twitter a video facing the crowd, and there's this young Sharks fan in the front row who looks so elated that Phil Kessel just put his hometown team down by 1. I guess it proves that the history of a situation and a player like Phil Kessel, especially on a night like that, deserves admiration regardless of who you're cheering for. Ultimately, the Golden Knights are up 1-0 on Kessel's first of the year, first with the Golden Knights at 15:51. The Sharks ended the period with a little bit of a late flurry of offense, but there wasn't really any real chances, and the Golden Knights were able to get out of a very, very scrappy first period with a 1-goal lead. This game really looks like the Golden Knights' second game in as many nights, as coming into a back-to-back is never easy, especially when there's travel, even though the travel is only a couple of hours up the road to San Jose. But it looks like they just got done playing against the Leafs 24 hours earlier, and even though the start kind of got pushed back a little bit, because the Rangers and Avs decided to go into overtime, they still looked a couple of steps behind, and that's just probably fatigue from having played the night before. The Knights were out shooting the Sharks 14-6 at that point. We're only 42% from the dot, which is, again, another low first period. 11 hits and 6 blocks. Kessel gets his milestone. Vegas exit the period with a 1-goal lead, despite not necessarily being the better team. Reimer has definitely been the better goalie of the two between Hill and himself. Basically, it could be a little bit more of a lopsided game, but ultimately the chances were few and far between on both sides, and the Knights were the ones who were able to capitalize. So ultimately, 1-0 going into the second period. Now, for as redeeming as the first period was for the Golden Knights, getting out to that 1-0 lead early on the Kessel goal, there was really not the same energy into the second period. This second period really looked like it was the second game for the Golden Knights in 2 days. as the Sharks got off to a much better start. They were much faster, their passing was much crisper, their offensive zone setups were much more defined, and ultimately they just kind of dominated the play, landing the majority of the shots in the early period. And ultimately, something was going to give, and the Golden Knights have been able to weather storms throughout this season, whether it be Aiden Hill or Logan Thompson in net. The defensive core has always been able to bail them out. However, this is a rivalry game, and you never know what to expect in rivalry games, except for that there's going to be chaos, and chaos is exactly what happened, as Nico Sturm for the San Jose Sharks ties up the game at 1 apiece. This was kind of the consequences of the Golden Knights' kind of lackadaisical defensive zone structure at the start of the second period. They were getting outworked, they were getting outplayed, and it just really showed on this goal. It was a tip play out front, and Pietrangelo had the opportunity to pretend that this wasn't going to happen by putting his body in the right spot, but I guess that's all he did was pretend that he was doing that, because Sturm kind of beat him to a spot and got the tip on a long point shot and tipped it behind Aiden Hill to tie up the game. So that's Sturm's 4th goal of the year from LeBanc and Svechnikov at 5:33 of the second period. The Vegas Golden Knights put up a little bit of pressure following the goal, but we really have had trouble sustaining zone pressure, similar to what was going on in the first period. There wasn't really a lot doing in our offensive end, and we had a lot of one-and-done opportunities, which didn't really do much good in terms of building momentum after having the game tied up on us. What did even worse was that we were trying to pass the puck into the net again. With about 7 minutes to go in the period, we had our first little bit of offensive zone sustained pressure, and I think there was like 46 passes and no shots on net. It was just like 40 seconds in the zone, but there wasn't a single move made towards the net because we were doing too much east-west passing and not enough north-south puck movement towards the opponent's goal. And ultimately, that was kind of a bit of a downfall. Despite the fact that the Golden Knights were getting woefully outplayed in the second period, they actually get to go to the power play in the form of a Sturm interference penalty at 15:14. The second line for the power play started, probably because Kessel was having a good game, and he continued to have a good game on the first part of this power plays. He had a couple of really good chances, one off of zone entry and one off of an in-zone set play. Ultimately, none of them were able to score, but they were both pretty good opportunities for the player who had just potted his 400th goal and is immediately out looking for number 401. The first line kind of was able to build off of that momentum, but they weren't really able to score off of it. They had some good sustained zone time and some good pressure, but they weren't able to do much with it in terms of net front and scoring potential. And unfortunately, this would not be the last thing to happen in the second period when it comes to the Golden Knights' poor defensive structuring and offensive abilities, as Matt Nieto would take advantage of an absolutely horrific line change from the Golden Knights, catching 2 of our defensemen in the zone, and they had a cherry picker out at the red line. Fire pass from Tomas Hertl inside the defensive zone, found Nieto all alone. He is in clean, absolutely clean and by himself from the red line in, and he just goes shelf on Aiden Hill late in the last minute of the second period to put the Sharks ahead 2-1. It was a frustrating moment because Pietrangelo kind of got caught watching. He didn't do a good job holding the blue line. It was a sloppy line change. Haig tried to get back, but there's nothing he could do because Nieto had about a 3-zone head start. And ultimately, it was kind of a bummer way to end the second period for the Golden Knights, as it was just, they were building to a good point. They had the power play. They weren't able to do much with it, but they were still able to build on the power play just to get punched in the stomach with this breakaway goal on a bad line change. And so the period ends with the last thing being Nieto's first goal of the year at 19:29, assisted from Hertl and Vlasic. The second period was just a total coin flip for the Golden Knights, where they were the more dominant team in the first period. The Sharks were equally as dominant in the second period. The shots are even in the game now at 21 apiece, but the Knights were outshot 15-7 in that period. And they were only 42% from the dot again, which is just a continuation. The status quo has remained the same. There hasn't really been a lot of press from the top 6 at this point in the game. The majority of the offense has been run through the third and fourth lines, whether it be Kessel, Howden, and Amadio doing, Kessel, Howden, Amadio things, or the fourth line doing fourth line things. Top 6 and the majority of our cap space hasn't really shown up to this game. Eichel's been a little bit quiet. Stone has been awfully quiet. Pietrangelo has been a bit of a mess. Theodore hasn't looked great. And a lot of players who make the big bucks to score need to find another gear going into this third period if the Golden Knights want to keep this thing competitive. And find another gear the Golden Knights would miraculously do. Now, statistically, the Golden Knights haven't been very good when trailing this season going into the third period, as they are yet to win when being behind going into the third period at this point. Fortunately, Shea Theodore decides to just shoot the puck, similar to what Paul Cotter did in the home opener against Chicago. When passing doesn't work, just throw it on net and things happen. And that's exactly what happened when he decided to go out and tie the game back up on his first shift of the third period. It was a really good push to open up the period. The Misfits won an offensive zone draw, got the puck in low. Reimer was sprawled out all over the place. Rebound is collected by the Golden Knights, shot up to Theodore at the point, and he just kind of walks the line and launches what I can only describe as a seeing eye single on net, and it just finds its way through 4 Sharks defenders and Reimer. I'm not even sure where it went, but it went in the net and tied up the game. Theodore's second goal of the season. He's the only Golden Knights defenseman to light the lamp this year. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether that's proof that the offensive structure that Cassidy's implemented is working, or that maybe our defense core isn't being able to capitalize on the opportunities they're being given. One way or the other, it's Theodore's second goal from McNabb and Marcia, so 55 seconds into the third period. Unfortunately, Golden Knights make the first mistake after scoring a goal, which is to immediately put yourself down a man, as Nick Hague decided to steamroll James Reimer, crashing the net, and he drew a goalie interference penalty at 1:56. Fortunately, the Sharks were basically able to do jack on the power play, and ultimately the momentum and possession arrow went back to the Golden Knights as they kind of dominated the middle of the period following this power play. And ultimately, all the good work the Golden Knights did from the end of that penalty kill up until the middle of the third period paid off in the form of William Karlsson doing William Karlsson things from 5 years ago. This goal was absolutely vintage William Karlsson menacing the San Jose Sharks in the second round of the inaugural playoffs. Karlsson has the puck, and he's skating up the middle, and he is presented with one of the highest paid defensemen in the NHL in the form of Erik Karlsson. Now, Erik Karlsson has defensive accolades. He hasn't been the same player since he got injured, but he's having a bit of a revival season to this point. William Karlsson, when presented with this opportunity, decides to do this. Oh, that's a really cool direction you think I'm going. Wouldn't it be a shame if I went that way? And when faced with another Karlsson in the battle of the Karlssons, Erik Karlsson decided to do this. Now, why would you go that way? Ow! I've McFallen! I have broken my Mick ankles. Turning what was essentially a 1-on-3 for the Golden Knights into a clear-cut breakaway from the blue line in. And William Karlsson is an elite goal scorer. He hasn't shown it over the last couple of years, but he's opened up this season with a good shot. And this was another one of those moments as he just fires it past Reimer. Reimer doesn't even go down into the butterfly. He is absolutely flabbergasted by it, whether it be the fact that his best defenseman just got absolutely turnstiled in the neutral zone, or the fact that he just had the puck blown right by him. What matters is that William Karlsson, have a day, buddy, putting the Golden Knights up 3-2. It's Karlsson's third of the year from Smith and Martinez at 13-13. So the Golden Knights have the lead. They have come back. They've reestablished themselves. They've got the 1-goal lead. But this is the Sharks, the Golden Knights' biggest rival for the last 5 years. One would expect that they would be able to mount a bit of a push and that the Golden Knights would have to make sure to do something to try and put this game out of reach, or else they were going to get caught from behind by, their scrappy brother to the west. And clearly Mark Stone loves this Sharks-Knights rivalry because he decided to just do a thing and put the Golden Knights up by 2. Now, credit where credit's due, Mark Stone does not deserve the majority of this goal. While he was the one to put the puck in the net, Chandler Stevenson hit him with an absolutely stunning pass. I mean, this was just probably one of the Golden Knights' cleanest goal of the year, especially given the situation that it was in, having just gone ahead in San Jose in a rivalry game after being down going into the third period. The situation was just really, really good. Stone kind of outworked the defender. Stevenson had the puck in the low corner to the right of Reimer. He's not really being contested, but he's got the defensemen crashing around him. Jack Eichel kind of pulls a little bit of pressure or a little bit of attention from the defenders in the middle of the ice and pulls them away from behind the net where he was standing, more over to the left wing. And ultimately, Stone's able to take advantage of this kind of shift to get behind the defender who's covering him and break to the net, where Stevenson fires the puck absolutely perfectly into the slot, where Stone's able to tap it in on the back door, completely wide open, absolutely wide open. And the sheer enjoyment of this goal from a Golden Knights perspective was only added to by the fact that the horn went off. Now, having the horn go off when you score a goal is not that's not a special thing in hockey. It happens all the time when you're the home team. But when you're the road team and you just went up by 2 and you hear your opponent's goal horn go off, that is just adding salt to the wound. It was a pretty goal. It made the Sharks defensemen look bad, and they had their own horn go off. That's just like, where's the bingo card for that one, Sin Bin? Like, honestly, that one needs to go on a bingo card somewhere, because I guarantee you we will never see a situation like that again, and it was just hysterical. And so ultimately, Stone's second of the year from Stevenson and Theodore at 14-15 wound up being a really critical turning point in the game, as not too long after that, the Sharks pull Reimer for the extra attacker, but they aren't able to do anything with it. All the wind has been just sucked out of their sails at this point, and there's nothing that they're able to do to get much offense. Sure, the Golden Knights tried to make the game a little bit interesting with Stevenson taking a roughing penalty at 19:32, but it's really hard to score 2 goals in 28 seconds. So ultimately, the game was that, and they killed off the last little bit of the power play and held on to win 4-2. This historic night was accompanied by a comeback for the Golden Knights. Kessel was not going to take a loss for an answer on his night of all nights when he sets the new NHL record that he will continue to improve on until he either gets hurt or retires in 6 years, because this streak will never end. The Golden Knights looked pretty off in this game, but they were able to get their act together in the third period on the back end of a back-to-back, which was honestly really impressive. The shots and face-offs really evened up throughout the game. The Golden Knights were basically even with shots, and they split face-offs with the Sharks throughout the game, finishing with 27 shot blocks and 14 hits. The Golden Knights really came out to play in the third period. They decided to forget that they were tired, forget that they had just played the Leafs 24 hours earlier, and go out and earn the 2 points. This is the kind of performance that you expect from really, really good teams, to be able to come back on a team that, no offense to Sharks fans, the Golden Knights are just better than the Sharks, and it's obvious in every part of the game. The first line looked really pretty good, especially in this third period. The Misfits line was very effective as always. You can put them together in any situation and they will be an improvement over what was there. Kessel had himself another game, and he's just continuing to get better and better. I'm very happy he was able to have a goal and have a count. It would have been nice to have him start or get his first goal as a Golden Knight, his 400th against the Leafs at home. And, while that was taken away, he still got an assist on the woggle that followed just a few seconds after. But the fact that he got his first goal as a Knight, his 400th of his career, on the night that he breaks Keith Yandle's record, it just has this poetic niceness to it that makes me feel happy, not as a Golden Knights fan, but as a hockey fan as a whole. Adin Hill looked pretty good, except for when his defenseman kind of left him out to dry on the first and second goal. The funny thing is, he is the goalie that just gives up 2 goals. He has given up 2 goals in every start, and he's won all of them. So if he keeps that up throughout the season, he will win the Vezina Trophy, which would be amazing. So next on tap for the Golden Knights is they're back at home against the Anaheim Ducks. Their trip through the Pacific Division continues. It was a great night. I did not think that on the back end of a back-to-back, the Golden Knights would come out after being down 1 going into the third period and be able to change the outcome of the game in just a few minutes. But ultimately, this team's got talent. This team impressed me last night, and I'm really excited to see what they've got for the rest of the season. Hopefully they're able to keep building on it, keep the winning streak going, stay hot at home, stay hot on the road, do that and all the other things, and have a good regular season. So that being said, thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, like it if you like what you see. I'm going to do this for every single game, so if you enjoy it, keep sticking around as they come out the day after every game. Comment down below if you want to interact with me. I love talking to people. Clearly, I'm talking to myself, and I have been for 20 minutes. But that being said, I will catch you guys to recap the Golden Knights and the Ducks on Friday.